So you're saying you have some talent. Well, what are you going to do with it? So in this one, I wanted to hit a couple things. In Scripture, there's this idea, or the parable of talents, where three men are given money and they're been asked to look after it. One guy does great, one guy does okay, and one guy just buries it in the sand. And when the owner comes back, the guy burying it in the sand doesn't do anything. So what are the three? He gets reprimanded because he doesn't. The resources he was given weren't grown; they were just set on. So what can we learn from this? A couple things. One is talents, in biblical sense, was money. In the pragmatic sense, you can apply this concept to just about anything. What have you been given, and what's your responsibility with what you've been given? And that could be anything, which we'll get to. But three things I wanted to hit. One, um, you have a responsibility to grow these talents. Two, you have a responsibility to manage them wisely. And then three, you also have the accountability if you lose them. So, what is a talent? A talent could be money, yes, but it could also be cognitive ability. It could be physical. It could be your time. It could be a skill. It could be a passion that you have. Not everybody's passionate about playing tennis, for example. But if you really wanted to play tennis and you did it at a high level, well, then you can provide that as entertainment for other people. That's useful. Some people are really good at, really want to be a woodworker, and they build things, build cabinets, build furniture, build houses. So talents extend far beyond just the idea of, some people say you're talented at sports, for example. But what I really want to refocus your mind on is, one, you have a lot more talents than just something that you're naturally good at. In the sense that you have a brain, you have time, you have cognitive abilities, you have passions that you have that you have passions that nobody else has. Well, what are you doing to grow those things? You have a responsibility to grow those things, to take them from where they are now to a more refined place. And that, to me, is the responsibility that all of us have. You have to say, okay, I have a mind. Everybody's got a brain. But what are we going to do with that brain? Are we going to take it and educate it? Are we going to read? Are we going to learn to think? Are we going to learn to think critically? Are we going to spend it zoning out? There's a big pull to just zone out every day and say, okay, the world is hard. I just want to go do whatever I want to do. I think as you get older, the things you in life shift, right? You care less about experiences and you care more about the people that you're doing those experiences with. And the idea that if you spend your life not developing things in order to give back, you end up in a position where you don't have anything to give anyone. A lot of people have probably been around people where they're, somebody's at the end of their life and they haven't spent any time developing anything, so they can't give anything to anyone. They can't give wisdom. They can't give knowledge. They can't give insight. If they're lucky, maybe they can give some money or something or some resources, but them as people, they're not interesting. They're not fun to be around. They have nothing to offer. And that, I think, stems from this concept that I'm going to work all day and not work on myself. You work on yourself in order to give of yourself. You suffer in order to disperse the thing that you've acquired, not in order to hold on to it and hoard it. The world is moving from a place, from a place of entropy, of order, to chaos, and that's seen in everything. I'm sure you've seen older people as they're on their last leg, so to speak. Their body gets frail, their cognitive ability leaves. So what are we gonna do now? The one thing I want to focus your attention to is the idea that you're not focusing on those things for you. You're not focusing to get your mind sharper because it benefits you. You should be shifting that perspective. You should be focusing on your mind, focusing on your talents, focusing on your abilities in order to benefit others. And in a strange way, people think that if I'm better, therefore I will be better. They don't ever think about, I will be more useful. I will be more useful to other people. And that's essentially how the economy works too, by the way. So we all have a responsibility to grow our talents. Think, read, act, do something. Second, to manage them wisely. To manage a talent wisely, to manage a gift wisely, means, okay, identifying that you have a gift, training that gift, training it regularly, perseverance is key here. If you're trying to learn how to read, I used to work with guys and teaching reading, and we always just talk about, hey, listen, whenever you if you want to learn to do something, you can't just do it once a month, once a week, 1 hour a week. You need to be doing it all the time in order to train something. Now, once you acquire a skill, once you acquire reading, it's very easy to sharpen that skill. You don't need to keep it razor sharp all the time unless you're going to be an editor or something. But once you've acquired the skill, then you can go into the next skill, go into the next skill, go into the next skill. Once you've acquired learning how to make something, once you've acquired learning how to make a use a skill saw or table saw or a drill, okay, what can you do with that now? Well, now that's where it becomes interesting, right? Now you become useful. Managing it wisely, managing those talents wisely means identifying you have it, training it, putting it to use. Thirdly, the last thing I want to mention is once you realize that you have a talent, it's your responsibility to train it. Otherwise, third point, you're accountable for the loss of it. And that's where the parable of talent shows up. If you have a mind and you've wasted your life not training your mind, who's to blame for that? You can't look around at other people and say, I never had a choice. You always have a choice. Spend 5 minutes thinking, play a game that challenges your mind, do a crossword puzzle, do a Sudoku, read a book that you wouldn't have otherwise read, learn a dictionary. There's always things you can do to sharpen your mind. And the thing is, to sharpen your mind takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of practice. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, the effort part is what becomes difficult for people. And here's the weird thing, and a hedonistic idea that I'm going to do it for me has diminishing returns. You can get to a point where you're like, I don't care about the next fancy meal I can have or the next pleasant experience. It just becomes ash in your mouth to a certain degree, where you just can't keep pouring on the pleasure. You can't keep pouring on the stimulation because it doesn't satisfy ultimately. You have to bring other people along with you. And that's the self-giving of your talents is where it becomes fun. It becomes fun to do stuff for people. It becomes fun if you're good at cooking to cook for people. If you're a good cook, go ask chefs. They're not making five-star Michelin 5-star restaurants and Michelin 3-star meals for themselves at their home by themselves. No, they make very basic meals for themselves. Not to say it's not fun, but you can't share the experience. The shared experience is what people are after. And so when you ultimately are accountable for not honing a skill that you have and then not sharing that skill, it goes away. It leaves. So those are the three things. I think every person has a multitude of talents. It's not just you're good at sports or it's not just you're good at singing. You have a ton of things that you can be good at. You have a ton of potential. It's up to you to get people around you. What's your responsibility? You need to get people around you. What are you good at? Okay, how do I get better at those things? How do I implement tasks and abilities in order to go from point A to point B? And then the follow-up question is, okay, now that you've developed this, what am I going to do with it? That's the constant iteration that you have to have in today's world. And just in general, don't ever pigeonhole yourself to say, this is all I am, this is who I am. So I'd be curious to see what you guys think. Give me a shout in the comments below. We'll talk to you in the next one.